not speaking because, yeah, otherwise you'll make funny. So, good morning, everybody. Usually I do have to do these things in Italian. It's nice for me for once to be able to do it in my mother tongue. So we're here to talk about a topic that's become quite important and popular on happiness at work. It may seem like something new, but it's not really. It has been around a while. You can see signs of it even in a fun way. I was looking back at Snow White in the Seven Dwarfs when Snow White was cheerfully whistling while she worked as a sign of the happiness that she felt, even though she was not doing very exciting work, cleaning the house with a bunch of animals following her. But more seriously, in the 70s, about 5 to 10% of companies paid attention to employee well-being. The interest doubled in the 80s. It doubled again in the 90s. And by the year 2000, there was about half the companies actually doing something about staff well-being. Today, that number is about 80%. Italy followed a similar pattern, though the growth was a bit slower. Around 2000, only 1 in 4 companies had some kind of well-being program in place here. But then came COVID, and the pandemic served as a catalyst for organizations to innovate how employees worked and to implement more flexible solutions, the most obvious example being smart working, thereby opening new doors that resulted in shift in corporate culture. But what do we actually mean by happiness? We're not talking about life-changing joy of having a child, or graduating from university, or falling in love, or how fantastic it feels when your soccer team scores the winning goal 5 minutes in overtime after you've been down 3-0. These are wonderful moments, but they don't contribute much to workplace productivity. Happiness at work is something different. It's the satisfaction of contributing meaningfully to your organization. It's the recognition of a job well done. It's having autonomy, flexibility, and authority to do the work that you need to do, and being measured by results, not by the hours you've worked. It's looking forward to seeing your work colleagues. It's waking up and actually wanting to go to work. Employees want to be happy, but companies want to maximize productivity. So happiness at work is where the two meet. So, let's talk a bit more now about, get a little bit deeper into the topic. Traditionally, people thought happiness was the result of good performance, but over time, the thinking flipped. Improving well-being actually increases productivity. In reality, both directions are valid. Productivity can boost happiness, and happiness can boost productivity. Either way, the conclusion is the same. Happy people do better work. And not just better, a bit better, I mean much better. Just a little bit of data on this. I looked at one study at Oxford University, which found that 1 point increase in self-reported happiness, and this was at British Telecom, led to a 12% increase in productivity in terms of sales. Other research programs show that well-being programs can reduce absenteeism even up to 20%, saving thousands of euro per employee every year. Another survey in the UK, 81% of employees say their well-being directly affects productivity. Well, another report I saw in the US claims that every dollar invested in well-being gets $3 to $6 back. But beyond the numbers, we all know intuitively how important happiness is at work. When we enjoy coming to work, we give more. More creativity, more energy, more heart. When people feel valued and respected, teamwork flourishes. When trust exists, innovation follows. When we feel balanced, we think clearly, collaborate more, and treat others better. Happiness and well-being are not luxuries. They are strategic foundations for stronger organizations. Ones with lower absenteeism, higher engagement, more retention, and better financial performance. And just a couple of thoughts on what we're going to focus on today, probably. What are the elements that will contribute to improving happiness at work? So I think we're going to see a little bit about, more about workplace culture and relationships, where trust, respect, inclusion, and supportive leadership fosters a sense of belonging and psychological safety. We'll probably hear about work-life balance, the importance of that, reasonable workloads, time off, and clear boundaries between work and personal life. Then recognition, purpose, and meaning. People need to see the meaning in their work and what impact it has on the organization's goals. People need to be appreciated. Recognition reinforces personal commitment and motivation. And finally, we want to see opportunities for growth and development. Career progression and skill strengthening are key. People thrive when they feel they are learning and advancing. Lack of growth has the opposite effect. When we invest in happiness at work, we are not just building better workplaces, we are building better people, better communities, and ultimately a better future. These are some of the topics that we will be covering. And now I will start to pass the ball to our distinguished speakers here today. So you each will have, we'll do 2 rounds of questions. And you each have about 5 minutes. In the second, we'll see how the time goes. And then afterwards, we can open up the floor, or we can have something more dynamic. We'll see a little bit how it evolves after that. So I have here with me today Rosario Bonifacio, Vice President and People Head Nokia Business Service. Sara Sasso, HR Director at Quanta System. Maria Scarcella Thorpe, Workplace Culture Strategist and Experience Designer, Nobad Pass. Doa Tahoun, Head of HR, Culture Transformation and Employee Experience from Cilantro, who's come from Egypt to be with us today, so it's a real pleasure and an honor. Luigi Gozzi, Director of Human Resources at Furnace Insurance Services. So we begin the first round now, and I'll start with Rosaria. So happiness at work could mean many things to different people. In your view, what does happiness mean at work? What does happiness at work mean for your organization?
What means for me personally means that people comes to work, that they are happy to come at work. I don't think that we need very sophisticated model. I am a strong believer that the more models we have is when we have a problem. Because if individuals or resources are happy to do the work that they do, you don't need all kind of literature on the topic. So what people want, and I think it's my company, it's whatever company in which people are. People want to come have interesting jobs or have jobs that are fulfilling. People want to have the possibility to give feedback, contribute, wants the possibility to speak without fear and fearless. without retaliation. That if they give a feedback, of course, with the respect of the decent rules of behaviors and politeness, this is considered, and it's not against them, or at least that they are listened. And something that is very much present, especially in the generation, the younger generation, is a balance between personal life and work, I think, much more than what it was today. And I think that, and we will talk about the threats, because there are several threats to all of those that are really coming from technology and where the technology is going. This is what the people want. Now, in the company I'm in, we have had 3 principles that each individual in the organization should live and breathe. And it's being open, fearless, and empowered. And this summarizes them all, what we want people really to feel when they are in our company. Is that easy, or is that something just defining those 3 words to make happy employees? No, it's not. It's not. It requires a lot of leadership.
Thank you. So we've already touched on some of the topics that I referred to. You talked how it specifically has been implemented at Nokia. Now I'm going to ask Sara Sasso. Having a focus on ensuring employee happiness at work is a relatively new concept here in Italy. How has this topic been approached in your company, especially bearing in mind the cultural changes that may be required and certain mindsets that may require, maybe quite ingrained, particularly in the people who have been in the company for many years?
Yes, thank you. And good morning, everyone. So I thought about this because I am in a company where we are living this cultural transformation somehow. Now, we are here today talking about happiness at work. Well, it was not like that a few years ago, and this topic was not on the table a few years ago. So first of all, I would like to, make a statement, because I think that happiness is an absolutely private matter with a very, very high social impact. And said this, I think that we may think more than happiness to be able and to want to talk about joy. I think that joy is a quite deeper state of being rather than happiness. And this can make a difference than in the medium, long term, maybe more than happiness. But of course, happiness is true, should be something quite easy, let's say. Nevertheless, I think it requires a journey inside each personal individual, because it's not that easy at the end of the day. And what do you mean by that? I mean that to achieve personal results, we say that people should be aligned with the value, with the organization. We need to know those values. What are those values? And so I think that one personal awareness, individual awareness should be one step back. Let's think, what do I believe in? What is that gives me energy? And what is that drains me energy? And then from that point on, of course, also for the person, can be maybe a different path within the same organization, or maybe looking for another one. Just a few words to tell my story. Why am I saying this? I am a Gen X. And when I entered the first time a big company, the mainstream, the main culture was leave all what is personal outside of the office. Do not mention any personal problem. Not even mention, just in case you had to step by a psychologist. No, don't do that, because you could be a problem in case, for the organization. And that's how it started. And in those times, it could make sense, because also organizations were different, and it was more like top-down organization, so it was more the company taking care of the people. But I think that nowadays, besides all what happened, so the COVID, that supported somehow to be more aware about ourselves. I think that also organization somehow need to have a different happy model, let's say, among them, because we cannot wait that, every decision is a top-down decision. We need that decision makers are everywhere in the company, and we need that people feel empowered to be able to make those decisions because they feel free to be themselves in the working, in the company they are, and in the job they are doing. So what am I doing today in the company I'm in? I'm supporting this transition, and which can be seen in two levels probably. One level is new entry, so recruiting process. Okay, let's say you can, am I going too far? Okay. Recruiting process, we have the opportunity to tell the people who we are looking for. The candidate has the opportunity to get to know us and to understand and to see if we are the right match for him or her. But in the company, we have people who have been working for us since 40 years. We turned 40 this year. We have a happy anniversary to us. And so in our population, we have colleagues that graduated and then they started working in our company. And it means that for them, I wouldn't say the word never changed because it's not true that the company changed, of course, we grew and everything. But still, the mentality needs a transformation. It's not just a matter of explaining what that means. It's really that we need to support the environment and let people understand that they have the permission to be themselves, which is not easy for the reason I said at the beginning, because it's an individual path. So trust is important, and the people also need to understand what we are asking them, of course, which is not absolutely easy because it's an individual decision. But I think that this is the only way, we can go through a cultural shift, and only the way, people do not wear a professional mask, let's call it in this way, then people can really provide a true contribution and a real performance for themselves and for the organization.
Thank you, Sara. I heard three interthreaded themes there. One is the personal responsibility, which is really important and maybe is not overlooked a bit. That it's also every person has to take their own responsibility in this happiness at work. And then you talked about delegated authority, which I had mentioned as well, and the importance of being able to make decisions at the right level and not have to always depend on the up or down. And the third one was more on no, just the last thing you said about exactly. No, the fact that people are it's really deep in the old ways of thinking, that have been around for so long, and that people, it's the culture shift that's required. So all these three things have to work together. I'll move on now to Maria. A major influence on employee well-being at work is the organizational culture, so we lead into this very nicely. In your view, how does organizational culture impact staff well-being and happiness in both positive and negative terms?
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I think culture is a make or break. It has a direct impact on everybody's well-being within the organization, for better or worse. And when I define culture, it's really about how the company, how we do things, how people interact with each other when, in tough times, under pressure, and also how are people rewarded, throughout the whole employee journey. I think the main three levers around employee happiness that culture has are: one is emotional climate within the company. The second one is, and I think probably the most important one that I see at the moment, is how work is done. So really ways of working. And then the third one is values, meaning and belonging. So how employees feel that their work has value within the company, and do they feel a sense of belonging to it or not? So on the first one, when it comes to emotional climate, how is the company culture? Is it a positive one, or is it a more toxic one? And it's not about what the company says or what the values are, but it's like, how do people really feel about this? And so in a positive culture, people feel they're trusted. So there's trust, there's psychological safety, and people feel they can contribute and share no matter what is going on, whether there's too much workload or they need to ask for help and so forth. In a more toxic culture, well, the opposite. So there's a direct effect on, the fact that there's a lack of well-being, or there could be some improvements within well-being. When it comes to ways of working, ways of working is really just starting by looking at your calendar. Do you have back-to-back calls 7 days a week? And, are you required to be at every single meeting, for example? So looking at what that looks like, and in my case, I've worked with hybrid and distributed companies where we actually take a step back and we do a meeting audit, for example. So we actually look at, okay, people are burning out. People are required to do too much. And so how can we improve that? How can we maximize the ways of working where, people actually work better and end up feeling better because they're not required to do so much? Around ways of working, there's a lot more that it could be said, and if of interest, we can dive in a bit more. But it's really about, making sure that, it's not, if you do not want an always-on culture, making sure that you put in the time to do that. That, I think, has the strongest impact on well-being today. And then the third one is values. So it's great that every company now has values, or the majority, and they have them on the website and on the wall of the company or the office if they have one. But it's really about, how do people feel? Are these values lived by on a day-to-day basis? And if so, how? Is it leadership saying that, or do people really feel that? And do people feel the sense of belonging to the company? Do they feel that they have a sense of purpose in what they do? Not just individually, but also within their teams and within the company. So this is the third one. And so overall, I'd say that culture has as I said, direct impact. It can be a protective factor, but also a risk factor on the other side. So I think speaking about joy is extremely important. But when it comes also to, I'm very practical. So what does that mean? And I think there's still a huge disconnect between this way of working and then everything that is company culture and well-being. It's as if it's like some sort of separate thread, while the work that I try to do is really practical and really tying all of these items with the business strategy. And these are culture and well-being, I believe, strongly supports can support the business strategy and performance. So.
Thank you. So you discussed these three key points on emotional climate, how work is done, and values. And it resonates with me a little bit, but you kind of need them all, because I worked for many years with the United Nations. And the United Nations, the value proposition is great. People, you're trying to improve the situation. No more poor people, no more hungry people. People really subscribe to that. But the culture leaves to be desired, because it's very hierarchical, extremely silo-based. Decisions are not delegated very easily. And so you have only one thing, and the other ones are much weaker, and you can see where when you don't have all three of them, it actually doesn't quite, the happiness at work is a challenge. But we're going to continue now down the organizational culture path. And as I guess just follows from what we both just said, that happiness at work is easy to say and hard to do. One of the elements to consider is the relationship between values and culture within the business context. Doa, can you elaborate a little bit on this? Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, as mentioned, happiness is, we talk about it every day. However, it's a very, very, very complex challenge every day. And to understand why, I think we need to go a bit human. Going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not sure whether you know it or not. So it's a psychological model. So its base is the psychological safety, and then the belonging, the self-esteem, and then later on is the self of achievement. So it's a psychological model, however, we can actually have it across the workplace. So modeling this with the values and culture, values is how is the guiding path of every organization, and the culture is how we work with these values, how we day-to-day, how leaders talk, how leaders communicate, how everyone feels valued, appreciated. So modeling this into the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the psychological safety is the culture, is where people feel that they trust their leaders, they can talk, they can actually, as mentioned with many people here in the panel, that people feel that they can be vulnerable, they can talk, they can actually, if they feel they are worried, they can talk freely, they don't feel that they will be judged. And then comes the growth and the appreciation. This is the second one, where people feel that when they perform, they actually feel that they have sense of purpose, and this comes at the later stage. So I believe that values without culture are only words. As mentioned, we can put it on the walls. However, without culture, it's not, you cannot live it. And culture without values can be toxic, and it can be inconsistent. So both actually work together towards the same purpose and towards the same happiness. So when we have these both embedded in the organization, actually you can have happiness as not only a concept, you can have it as a living experience for everyone. So people usually say that happiness is only perks. Perks are very important. However, if you don't have the basic needs, actually perks wouldn't be sufficient. That's it. Thank you.
So here we now heard about the importance of following a model, that these things don't just happen by accident. You talked about just having the values without the culture is not going to do it. I know that's something I can relate to, again, with my UN experience. The values are there, the culture is not. And it's actually dissonance. It creates dissonance. It's actually frustrating. I mean, it creates bad feelings. So now we move on to Luigi. Furnace Insurance has implemented a specific strategy to increase happiness at work, which has been to introduce a shortened 4-day work week. What was the motivation of your company to adopt this approach, and what has been achieved and learned by doing this?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Right, so a brief introduction. 3 years ago, well, first of all, we operate in insurance, so it's office jobs. And 1/4 of the workforce is in the UK, and 3/4 in Italy, plus a few more scattered in Spain and Belgium. So 3 years back, we introduced the real deal in terms of 4-day week, an authentic initiative where we would actually give 1 day a week for free to our colleagues. People would work 80% of the equivalent of a full-time, but the salary would stay, they would still get 100% of the salaries and contributions and all of that. We did it for multiple reasons. First of all, to boost retention and attraction, especially in the UK, where competition for talent post-Brexit was already fierce, and post-Brexit is even fiercer. Plus, we're talking about a small world, the city of London, the insurance quarter. So to boost retention and attraction, to distinguish ourselves with something different from money or benefits, and also right or wrong, we believe that we are more productive if we work in the office. So I guess we are a bit against the trend here. And so this was a way to promote working in the office, because the deal is you can work 4 days, but these 4 days are in the office. Last but not least, it was a way to promote a work-life balance and introduce a new approach where everybody has got more time at their disposal, but then in the 4 days, the remaining 4 days, they are required to work and to be more focused. So we had multiple objectives. I can say that we did achieve them in some form, not 100%, all of them. And the lessons that we learned were the following. An organization that wants to make a bold move like this needs to accept that in time this will become the new standard, the new norm. So this will be the new reality. So even if there's an agreement that where if we need them to work on the 5th day, they would have to be available. Still, you would see unhappy faces when that happens. Also, organizations who want to go this way, they will need to envisage hiring more people. You cannot squeeze 5 days of work into 4, no matter how organized you are. And you can count on an increased motivation, an increased willingness to give themselves generously to their employer, and a bit out of gratitude also for this freebie. But I guess this increased motivation and gratitude slowly fades away in time, because it becomes a new a right. And so organizations will have to hire more people, and so and costs will increase. So not only the cost of work for the organization will stay the same, but you get people to work 20% less, plus you'll have to hire more people. So it's an expensive initiative. We will stick to it. It has become our. It does distinguish our organizations. In Italy, there's a handful of organizations that have introduced the 4-day week. But it's and also it requires that the organization really reinvents itself, because you need to review processes, procedures. You need to upskill your people in terms of time management, and also, finally, you also need to make sure that the top and middle management take a more proactive role in encouraging people to stay focused. A silly example. I believe that when you're sitting at your desk, that your mobile phone should be in the drawer, right? So and then you take a coffee break, and you go on social media, or you answer your messages. But this is really difficult to implement. Middle managers, especially, are not really happy to have this difficult conversation and tell to their colleagues, can you please put the phone down when you're sitting at the desk and stay focused. But by all means, do take a coffee break and with your mobile phone. So this is a bit difficult. It's difficult to make it happen.
So this is one interesting example of trying to improve the work-life balance by shortening the work week. In some ways, Google tried to do something similar in a way when Google implemented the 20% of your time could be dedicated to whatever you want to do at the workplace. So it's sort of like the same thing, but it's still working for the company. And many of the many new products came out of that that allowing people to do that, to have free time. But in your case, I'm interested to know also, we'll come back to you again, Luigi, talk a little bit more about the impact on staff performance by having a shorter work week, and how is the company compensated? I mean, you should talk about hiring new people as well, but is that what actually happened? Is the performance the same as before you had a 4-day work week?
So all of a sudden we found ourselves with less time available, and so we could not really find the time to measure performance, to be honest. So it was also a bit tricky because we have 3 different divisions do 3 different things. And if you allow, I would also mention one other lesson learned, and then I'll go back to your question. We believe when we introduced it that it was the solution for everyone, but the people have different needs. And so, for example, a graduate would start in an organization. Instead of having more time, they would probably want to have more money. And often they do not know what to do in the 5th day because their friends are working. So in time, this brought us to develop some personas. So we have the graduate, probably there needs to have more time to make experience, need to be more in the office, need a bit more money, and the parent with more seniority who would really benefit from having more time in their hands. So this was an additional lesson learned. In terms of productivity, I partially answered before. This boost we would see in the beginning slowly faded away. In order to really boost productivity, I believe we need to involve middle management more and keep people on their toes a bit.
So it's a complex, it's sort of learn while doing and improving by doing, and the feedback to improve and things like that. But I think that's a lot of what this is about in the end. So Doa, I'll come back to you now. For happiness at work, needs to be, as you had also said before, there needs to be a strong bond between the individual and the organization. What are your thoughts on what the nature of this bond should be based on your experience in Egypt?
Can you? Okay, so in Egypt, work actually goes beyond the transactional work. So I think we're a bit like emotional. Like Egyptians are a bit emotional nationality. So I believe that people, when they feel that they matter to the organization, when they feel that they can trust the organization, the organization has their back, I think a lot of things change. So I think trust is the base layer, and then comes the belonging. However, belonging takes 2 to tango. So organization needs to be committed to their employees, that they feel they are heard, seen, and whenever there is success, they can be seen as their success, and whenever they fail, they know how to. So it's the relationship between the day-to-day, and the employee themselves needs to be committed, they need to be accountable. So it takes 2 to tango, so this trust can be built and the belonging can be built. And whenever this happens, actually people feel that they belong more to the organization. So if I would say trust is the base, and then comes everything else.
So the trust and belonging for you are the two key concepts. The trust is not an easy one. It really takes time, and it can't be. You can't just say. It's something that you have to feel. It has to be.
Yes, you need to feel it actually in every day in the leaders, how leaders are are dealing with their organization and with their people. Because you can say trust as a big word, however, when you go into organizations, people would feel that there's some sort of bias. For example, people would feel that one day their work would not be appreciated, or they work but they're not seen, and one day their work can be taken to another one and they don't feel they don't get what it is. So trust has a lot of elements to build on, but I believe that trust is the base.
And it could be easily broken. So it's constantly working, yes. In 1 second, yes. We'll stay on the subject of organizational culture, Maria, right? What approaches and techniques have you adopted to realign organizational culture in a way that's more conducive to staff happiness?
More conducive to staff happiness. That's a good question. So the framework that I usually use is listen, redesign, and embed. So these are, again, 3 levers. I try to, I was thinking of concrete examples that I can bring to the table here. So the first one is, so when it comes to listening, what does that mean? So it's a mix of, the survey, but it's also about listening the employees. So a mix of interviews, leadership, and just, some other employees, to really understand how they feel and to really be able to sort of like map out what is going on, what is the real culture. And sometimes I think just a survey can be misleading. So doing a mix, so it's a sort of listening and diagnosing. So that's key. And then one thing that I always do is map something that I call moments that matter. So mapping out across the employee journey what companies do. So really starting from the interview process to literally the whole journey, and looking at what are the touch points and how people feel across them all. After that, we start to kind of redesign. But before we redesign, we also look at, how the company is actually working. So, as I mentioned earlier, ways of working. Do they say, for example, that, they value flexibility, but then require quite the opposite. So, it's really about like listening to what they're kind of preaching, let's say, but also looking at what is actually being done. And then it's a question of redesigning this moments that matter. So looking at maybe there's too many initiatives going on. Maybe the initiatives that are there are nice to haves, but are not essential. So that's what I mean by redesigning. And so really focusing on the key ones that will move the needle. And sometimes less is more, but also understanding how do we measure the impact of these initiatives. So how do you calculate ROI on these sort of things? And that's something that, having a framework is very helpful, and that I try to always improve on. And when it comes to people, it's very hard to sometimes quantify, right? One thing that we do a lot of is really focusing on experiences for teams, such as offsites and retreats, whether in person or virtual, but that are not just, let's say, a trip or, but it's really starting from the reason why they're gathering and then kind of building the whole experience around that. Maybe it's something around trust. Maybe it's increasing psychological safety. Maybe it's, it's a fully remote company and the team went through huge growth and people haven't met yet, for example, in person. So really creating those moments, but really curating those experiences so that then, you basically are able to sort of see the impact and kind of bring it along. And then the last part is the embed, which is essential. So it's really looking at, we've mapped out, what are the initiatives and what are the touch points that we want to really focus on. And now how do we make sure that the leadership, and also, well, on one side, the leadership is able to live these and kind of, bring them forward to sustain these in the long term. But also making sure that there are the systems in place to, make sure that it's not just a one-off sort of thing, but it's, you know, there is this continuity, and you can actually see and quantify the impact. So I think the key here for me is really that, you know, well-being, happiness at work, and culture and the business strategy, it needs to be merged, and there needs to be a bit of a strategic, sometimes stepping back and having the strategic look and assessment on all of this can be very powerful. So kind of, you know, slowing down to then go faster sort of thing.
Thank you. That's very interesting. I think the embedding is so key, and it's often not there. In my experience, I've seen over many, many years, many surveys, lots of apparent listening. You see the managers sitting there nodding their heads, but then nothing happens. And that is actually counterproductive, I presume, yeah, because you think you have the illusion that you're being listened to, but then nothing happens. And I'll come back to you in a second. Regarding the retreats, again, I've seen retreats a dime a dozen, but it's really, and I agree with you completely, vital that they have a clear focus, because again, otherwise they risk just being a fun day on the town. Yeah, just if you wanted to add more.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, which is, you know, in all of this work, to me, the biggest risk is also, you know, one is after all of this work, then, you know, kind of showing employees that you're moving into one direction, but then not kind of delivering. And so that is a complete break of trust. So that's one. And then I just wanted to mention perks. I think somebody touched upon it earlier. I think perks are great. Some of them are nice to have, some are essential. But I think well-being and happiness at work are something a bit different. So, you know, they can be, you know, as I said, they can be add-ons, but it's really about, you know, making sure that you integrate well-being and, you know, this sort of way of working into the culture. Then you can add the massage, the gym membership, the yoga, you know, whatever it is that you want to do with fruit or, you know, in office. But that's not going to make or break the impact.
Right, let's move on to Sarah now again. What do you think can and should be done to accelerate cultural changes that are needed, that you referred to earlier, that would facilitate staff well-being at Quanta System?
Yes, so earlier we spoke about the individual responsibility. Of course, company as the other one, as any good relationship. I mean, so company themselves, I think, need to take that moment to make that step back, as Maria was you were mentioning, and make a reflection and think, okay, what's important to me? What are my values? And which are the behaviors I want to see behaved, I want to see lived in the company that can truly mean that those values are in the company, are lived. So same responsibility to the company as per the individual in this case. And that's how we are trying to work step by step, little by little, because it's you know, always tricky to go too fast in these cases. I mean, culture takes time, really takes time, and also the reflection takes time. We need to take that time, you know, because having it too fast, it's risky, I think. And if you want to have a better defined culture, I wouldn't say a well-defined, it's never the defined culture, you know, it's always moving. But a better defined culture, I think that we need to give also the time to the people to take it, to understand it, to make sure they are in that path. And in this sense, we are trying in the last years to take some initiatives in order to, step by step, introduce some concepts to see how people react, and to also to gather from our colleagues ideas, informations, what's needed. So the widest one we took was we implemented an initiative on inclusive language. And we created classes, mixed classes with people from each and every department, so we all mixed them up, and we asked to every single person in the company to spend 6 hours in a year, so we are not talking about, ages, 6 hours, 2 hours each, so in modules of 2 hours each, to stay in a classroom, to listen and to discuss about inclusive language, which of course pass also by gender, but not only gender. As said earlier, in my company we have people that they have been working there since ages. They know them, among them, very well, and they're like friends. So sometimes the language, let's say it's more like the bar around the corner rather than, a working place. And we needed to tackle this point because it was good, it was nice, of course, but could be a problem for new employees, for example, which may feel not included. And so one of the most important points for us in this path was to raise awareness about the importance of words, of language that we use also in front of the coffee machine. If we are in a working place, for us it was important that we could clarify, what's allowed and what's could be tricky for the people in the same room. The second focus was to provide guidance, of course. During those meetings, we took the time to support our colleagues, to let them understand what was allowed and what was not allowed. And it could seem very, simple, but if you never take a position, then there is no position. Third, we gathered insights from colleagues, and that led us to the building of a behavior manifesto that we then, of course, integrated in our performance management. And of course, that manifesto was built by our colleagues. So we gathered ideas from them, and then we shared with them. We thanked them for the ideas and the contribution they gave us. And today, the performance management integrates that. I said earlier, we turned 40 this year. And so we had to celebrate. We wanted to celebrate. It's a good thing. For us, it was a very good year. And so we decided to have a big party with Quanta Without Borders. I don't know if internationally it's well known, but it was like for my generation. It was an old way of playing games together with teams, and so we created teams. We are 300 people. We are not big company. We are middle-sized one. So we HR we created the teams. Same reason as before. We wanted people to get to know themselves among each other. Different departments, and each and everything were involved into games. So they had to play together. They had to fight somehow together, but having fun, and that created a memory, and that also let them understood that the company, so give a message that the company was allowing them to have fun together, and that it was important. And smiles. You can smile together. It's okay, and we want that happen. And remember that happened. That you can make it happen in that special day, but also every day, in the office. Last thing that I would like to mention here. Is a very recent one. A few days ago, it was the Kindness Day, the World Kindness Day, and we started a Quanta Kind program. Simple one, very, very simple one. We distributed a croissant, just to say thank you to everyone. And together with that, we gave 3 cards. Everyone, of course, then they are free. They can take these cards all around the company. And in these cards, they can say thank you or acknowledge a colleague for anything they want. Simple one. And in some countries, this is like already seen. But in that, in my current company, this is something new. And so in that culture, it supports, the fact that everybody can be valued, and not only top down, but peers, among peers. And I think that is very important element to support the creation of that joy, let's say, because the working environment is also that one, in my opinion, a collective responsibility.
Thank you. You gave some very nice examples of what your company is doing to support happiness at work. I like also as we're getting near the end now, I know we have one more, but just wanted to say that I like the message that culture change takes time. It's not overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. And it takes a lot of effort. And as Doa had mentioned earlier, the trust can be broken in 1 second. So all that work can all be destroyed in just in 1 second. And it can also be destroyed in other ways. My experience in the UN, I was actually heading up a whole culture change movement, and we were making progress. And I could actually see the organization changing. But then there was a change in executive leadership. And the new guy didn't care about staff happiness. And he's gone now, so I could say that. And in fact, it became very authoritarian regime, and that was the end of that. That was just the end of that. So it needs the constant nurturing, monitoring, feedback. It's not something that goes away. It has to be constantly, and I think the HR can play a really strong role in that, in acting as, for facilitating the process. So now we'll hear another example of tell us, Rosaria, what is currently being done to support staff well-being and happiness at work at Nokia, and what could be done in the future as well.
Yes. First of all, it totally resonates what has been said before. Strategy, culture needs to be aligned together with values. And the famous words that culture eats strategy at breakfast, so you need to have a very well-formed culture if you want even to implement the business strategy. Because if not, this is going to be, is going to fail, like you mentioned, and supported by leadership. I was thinking what we do, and we do a lot in this respect. So maybe for the HR community, this can be a useful reflection in order to think even about the tools. For example, we have given, considering our values, we have given a lot of space in creating a safe space and how to train leaders to create an environment where people feel safe. So this has been an important focus during the previous years. And all the time that in the latest period we have had organizational change, we have equipped leaders or refreshed to leaders what that means. Even creating a space for the leaders in order to get support, because they are the one in the chain that needs to help in order to make the change. As well, we talk about well-being, engagement. We have the survey. I am not sure that the surveys are useful if we don't implement it, and that has been already said. And we all have question mark, and even the employees have question mark, and they say that. What I found really powerful is to have a structured process for performance evaluation, or a structured process to meet employees. Maybe performance evaluation, I mean, several other companies are moving away from that. But structured one-to-one with the teams. Structure with the teams every 2 weeks, every month, so that you can really take the temperature of your team. And there is a channel through which the employees can voice what they feel, what they sense, and even the leader. So especially in Nokia, when I joined Nokia, this was very much still used, and I found it very powerful because really keeps the pulse of the organization. There is something else that is very much rooted in all the different organizations across the globe, and this psychological support to the people that require that. There is, of course, a private channel. People can connect with this private channel with the doctor of the premises. It's very local. It's a very local initiatives, but I see that all the local companies are implementing that. And you can call the doctor will direct you to the psychologist. You will get 5 sessions for free if you need help. And this help, it's only related to your work life, but even to your personal situation. Then there is a network of omnibus across the entire globe, where the employee can raise concern if there are concerns. And then we have a whistleblower policy where employees can anyway give information of situations that they observe that are not in line with ethical. I think that those things are important, because if I compare what was happening few years ago and now, at least those things exist, and I see that people use them. So at least gives a possibility for the people to use those. I want to say one thing, but before we close. This is what's happening today. But if we think of what artificial intelligence, not to use a biased words, it's bringing in our life and in the work context, this is a dramatic change, and the fears, the well-being, it's going very much impacted, but our roles are going to change. And it's not a wise thing to say we delete roles because there is artificial intelligence. No, there are other different kinds of roles, but for sure this is changing, and we are not equipped all over the globe, I think, in order to cope with this.
Well, you've opened up a real can of worms that we could talk about for the next hour, except that our time is over. I had wanted to take questions, but we're actually just at the time level. So I also summed up, I think, before a little bit, so I won't do it again. So I wanted to thank all our speakers, Luigi, Doa, Maria, Sara, and Rosaria. And of course, the audience, very nice to have you here today, and hope that this has been an interesting session for you.
Good morning, good morning. Welcome to this session of International Talk Show. We will talk about DEI and global trends. This is Adriano Solidoro, Università di Milano Bicocca, and I will facilitate this session. We have some outstanding guests here, and before introducing the topic, I'm going to introduce them to you, to the audience. And we have Lisa Corti, Head of HR and Legal, RAPI Group.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Me. Thank you for having me.
Elisa Fornero, HR Director, South and West Europe, and DEI Lead at Johnson Controls Holding Italy.
Good morning.
Good morning, welcome. Claire Idier, HR Director, Europe, Massimo. Good morning, thank you for being here. Michelle Strasfitz, Head of Sustainability at Loop. Good morning, Michelle. And Fabrizio Tripodi, Regional HR Director, Europe Southwest, Brown Foreman. Good morning, Fabrizio. Okay, a very brief topic to the brief introduction to the topic of the discussion. The title is suggesting something, the future of DEI, global trends, local tensions. So what shall we say? I would suggest that 2025 doesn't look like 2015 at all. So DEI has been the center of many discussion about HR management and also about organizational design, organizational change, organizational learning. And now it doesn't seem so. At least we are, in US, we are assisting some political backlash. In Europe, the situation is a bit different, but opinions are very polarized. And maybe diversity policies are slowing down. I don't know. You will tell me what's happening. And so I would suggest to my guests to make a first round of discussions. And just would you mind to share with us your experiences, your ideas, your doubts, how you dealing with this change, with this shift in the culture and attitude towards DEI, and then maybe we'll have the time for a second round and see what you're planning, your organizations are thinking about the future of DEI. So, shall we start with Lisa Corti, okay?
Yes,
So, would you mind to share your experiences, your opinions about this very important topic?
Thank you very much, Adriano, again for having me and for inviting me here today in order to talk about this very interesting topic. As you said, 2025 has been a little bit a new wave for the diversity, equity, and inclusion matter and topic. And as it happened for many companies, ours as well decided to think a little bit in depth how to organize and structure these interesting...
Sorry to interrupt you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Could you introduce the audience to the audience your organization?
Yes, of course, yes. Yes, I'm Lisa Corti. I am the group head of HR and legal at RAPI Group. It is an international multinational corporation in the chemical industry. We have 8 branches in the world, from the US to Singapore, and our headquarters is in Switzerland. So we have a very diverse workforce, different cultures, different needs, different traditions that we have to respect and acknowledge. That's why, as I was saying, a little bit more than 1 year ago, when we understood and realized that the diversity, equity, and inclusion topic was about to change and the sensibilities were a little bit shifting, I'm not saying in a positive or in a negative way, but anyway, it was the topic was under a lens in order to be evaluated in a different way. We also understood that it was very much company-driven, HR-driven, this process and these programs. And there was a sort of lack of engagement in a way or another, no matter how much we were investing and involving ourselves in these programs. But it was very difficult to really engage our people. So what we have decided, also as a learning curve, because what we wanted was an employee base that was feeling and at ease with the diversity, equity, and inclusion topics in the various countries we're in. We decided to go from top to down to bottom, from bottom to top. So at the end of last year, the December 2024, what we said, it was like, okay, let's stop what we're doing and ask our employees what they want us to do, in which way they want us to be engaged. So we went from a reactive approach to the diversity, equity, and inclusion to a very proactive one, asking our employees to tell us in the way they wanted to be involved. And from that came out a very, very interesting discussions. We did some roundtables involving employees from the diverse branches, from the US to Singapore, Thailand, Russia, Europe. We have a presence in many countries. And that brought to a completely different way of thinking at the diversity, equity, and inclusion. It also allowed us to focus on what really mattered for our employees, not forgetting that the company needs also to show the road. So, okay, we listen to you, we take care of your desires and everything, but let's remember that there are many other aspects that maybe go underside, but we have to put the light on them. So a little bit of your idea and visions and our ideas and visions. These helped us increase the return of investment. We have way more presence, 50% more of engagement in the events and the activities that we are doing that are diversity and equity and inclusion based. And we are also focusing the attention on having one person in the HR that is dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion solely. And that is helping foster the culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we are going from a program to a belonging. So the people that are working with us are believing in what we are doing because it starts from them. And we are listening to their needs and what they really want to do. And in a year like 2025, that is very different from what we have experienced in the past, where it seems that diversity, equity, and inclusion was a little bit a trend. Now we want to say, let's do this our way. So we don't want to compare ourselves to many other industries or different businesses, but we want to do the things the way we are, listening to the core of our company, of our beliefs, respecting them, accepting them, understanding them. And in this way, we think that we can carry on in a way that makes, in the way that matters for the company, but as well for our people. So this.
For sharing your perspective. You have a global perspective, so it's
Yes, it's a global perspective.
point.
Yep.
There's a way of tackling these political backlash.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
And you're doing your own way. You know.
Yes, that's a good point. We are doing our own way because we saw that doing the way everyone was doing was not working for us. And that's why we had to reshape a little bit the strategy and start all over in a fresh way. I haven't seen that as a failure, but as a learning point for our organization. And it's a little bit our culture. So always ask ourselves, is still valid and still meaningful? And if it is, okay. If it's not, okay, let's reshape a little bit and see what we can do better. And especially in years and in situations like the one that we're living with a huge, let's say, impacts that are coming from very different point of views and perspective. This is something that for us was a great success.
And this bottom-up approach also means listening, and listening
Yes, 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 exactly. People felt at the center of the activities we're doing, and are feeling really part of the topic. So it's important.
Good morning. So I'm Elisa Fornero, and I'm the HR Director for Southwest Europe and in theory DNI, and I'm starting to say in theory because my title will change, DNI for EMEA and Latin America. I'm working for an American organization called Johnson Controls. Johnson Controls is a big organization focusing on smart building solutions to support our customer in the sustainability journey. We are more than 100,000 employees across all the globe, present in all continents, present in 150 employees, so you can already imagine that our cultural background and it's quite important, and the diversity, in particularly from a cultural point of view, is really, really important. So, as we were saying, DNI, we used to have a very strong team inside the DNI. For us, the DNI used to be very important until a few months ago. Used to be. No, it's just a matter of and the reshuffle. I will tell you the story. But I would like to tell you a little bit how it was, because I think it's important to understand the move from one concept of DNI to what we have right now. So, in particular in EMEA, because let's focus in Europe and Middle East, the DNI, apart from the cultural point of view, that is not minorities as is interpreted in the US, but was mainly based on gender. So we used to do lots of reports related to the gender, also because we are an engineering company where 75% of the people are male. So there was a big, big push in trying to have women in leadership. We used to have lots of tools where we were just clicking a button, and every time a vice president was telling us, how many females did you hire this month? We hired 3 women, so really, really map, and always lots of stress about this. But then the political situation in US changed drastically, and in January, in 2 days, we had to delete completely the word diversity from the organization. It was a kind of, when you are working on an Excel document or in a Word document and you need to do find and replace. So the word diversity was unpronounceable. We were not able to say about. So you can imagine the big shift because we were really using diversity everywhere, on the website, on the presentations. So we really had to completely cancel and also change completely the strategy. Also the tools where we were really relying and able to click the button, we were not even able to use the tools anymore. I don't know how much familiar you are with the political situation, but the American companies are risking of not having a fund from the government if they are still focusing on the gender situation. So we had to reinvent ourselves. We've done some workshop with the business, with ourselves. First of all, we rebranded the team. Now the team is called Employee Engagement and Inclusion. Inclusion is still very, very strong. The diversity is not that we cancel all what we have done, because there is still some focus. Of course, it's a focus that is slightly hidden, or better. We continue to believe that we want to have a diverse team. Diverse, as I was telling you, for me, the cultural diversity is really important, because I'm a strongly believer that the more people we have with different backgrounds, it's more interesting also to work in an organization, and also from a problem-solving point of view, it's quite interesting. So it's not that we have cancelled it, but we are not publicizing anymore the word diversity.
Interesting. And So it must be very difficult also because if you are in the sustainability sector, I mean, gender and cultural backgrounds are really linked to at least to the social sustainability. So, which is part of the ESG. It's a big S there. Okay. Okay, we'll go back to that. I wanted to ask to Lisa just briefly. Did you have to rebrand and use like another word too?
No, we don't.
You didn't. Okay.
We didn't.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Claire Idier. Claire, you are HR Director Europe, but for an American company, right?
Correct, yeah. So I'm Claire, I'm working for an American company that is called Massimo. We're active in the medical device environment. And so I was listening to what was said before, but actually the challenges on our side was different. As I said, we have a very young company, less than 40 years old, and until last year, the CEO of the company was as well the founder. So we've been always, promoting, we've been always promoting an environment free of any kind of discrimination, so around gender, around, any kind of discrimination. But we have never implemented, very, how should I say, strict policies, not because we were an American company, but just because the company was young, so that was clearly not the priority. And we had a change at the board last year, and now, I mean, the goal on our side is really, I mean, to seize this opportunity to make these topics, so diversity, equity, and inclusion a priority, and to show, as you know, Europe region, where we have quite a lot of regulations, where we are obliged, no matter if you are an American company or not, or another company, you are obliged to provide, some data. You are obliged to put some measures in place. So the goal on our side as European region is to show, how these kind of measures, how these kind of legal obligations help basically the company to promote, a very, safe workplace, how we can, attract and retain talents. So we want to say this, how should I say, legal obligations, framework we have in Europe to show to the US, how we can kind of develop this in other regions where it's not that there is a pushback not to put anything in place, but maybe they don't show it as a priority. So this is where we are. So, really at the beginning, we have not put a lot of things in place, but we really hopeful that with what we've been doing in Europe, that might, be implemented in other regions, in other countries, and help to push the company, let's say, to invest on this. Yeah. Mm.
So you're dealing with the double standards.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to adapt to Europe,
Oh, yeah. Mm.
legal obligations and norms,
Yeah.
but maybe you're afraid that from United States somebody will say, "Oh, what you're doing over there."
Exactly. Because sometimes when we're talking about this topic, it's a kind of foreign language for them. I mean, meaning it's a priority, as I was saying. It has always been a priority to promote an environment free of any kind of discrimination, but more as how should I say, a concept, as a principle, which I guess is the basis, of course, but it's not enough. So, of course, I mean, one would like to say, yeah, but it's normal, it's natural. Why should we do differently? Because unfortunately, sometimes if you don't put rules, if you don't put framework around this, I mean, it comes as a second priority. So yeah, and also because more than promoting, let's say, a very, how should I say, trendy environment or these kind of things, putting some policies in place, avoid, this kind of discriminations, avoid, avoid any kind of issues you might have, in HR. So it's really, to me, a kind of win-win situation.
Okay, maybe during the second round we'll see how to cure this schizophrenia approach.
Yeah.
Schizophrenic approach.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. Michelle, so would you mind to share with us your experiences and doubts and ideas?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Michelle Strachwitz. I'm the head of sustainability of agency Loop. Loop is a digital agency working for global leading clients in design, digital technology, and content marketing. Our headquarters is in Salzburg, but we do have 7 offices worldwide. Talking about diversity, our team is about 464 talents, and we have 59 different nationalities within our team, and we do have, so 51% of our team is international, and we have a female leadership quote of 52%. So talking about current challenges, in general, I think we have 2 main challenges. So let's be honest, I think at the moment we are like facing a bit of a buzzword burnout and backlash, which means that people get a bit tired of overpromising, but also like about disconnected strategies. And also, of course, there's a political backlash in the US, but also in Europe, which brings me then to the next challenge. I think now with limited resources in the AI teams, but also in sustainability teams, it should be less about doing more and following trends, but more about doing smarter. So really focus on the material analysis, where do you really have an impact on your team, but also on the industry. But then also start with co-creation, talking to your team, focus more on belonging and social safeness. I think that's the same approach we also follow. Because I think at the end, diversity brings really the raw talent into your team, but social safeness and belonging makes a difference and turns it into a high-performing team. One example or one challenge we faced, for example, at Loop last year, and it's also about co-creation and collaboration. It was, we have 44% of parents in our leadership team, and 100%, for example, of our female management team are parents. So that's a huge topic, and we got the feedback, you're doing okay, but we could do better. So that's the reason why we started to kick off this process, not because we had to, it was not a trend at the moment. There was no ready-to-use solution at the market, but we had the feeling we have to do it. And also we had a look at the industry and the market, and it says like, okay, we know that parents, especially moms, have limited career options because of missing flexibility, but also if low visibility. If you, for example, see a role model of a working mom, it's like the perfect role model of a full-time working mom managing like household, job and kids perfectly. But I think it's like a bit over-promising expectations because honestly, at the end, it's like all-you-can-eat buffet. You can have everything what you want, but at the end you feel really bad because it was too much. So that's the reason why we kicked off the process. We start with co-creation with our parents. We created a safe space. We asked them, what do you need? What are your challenges? At the same time, of course, we also ask parents out of Loop. And as this topic was really complex, we started with a collaboration. We worked together with a long-term partner, a female leadership coach. She shaped with us a program. Also, we invited a lot of other experts from parenthood, equality, company culture, company communication, and so on, to really work with us on this topic. And the outcome was that we created the first leadership program for parents. And it's for all parents, because if we really want to talk about equality, we have to involve as well mom and dads. And then it's digitally, so all parents can really join the program, very flexible. And the thing is, and that was the first point was really important to kick off this process is that the parents working on their own individual goals, on the commitment and also on the personal resources, and to focus on the new social skills they created or they gained during the parenthood journey. Because at the end, one really big finding was there's no one size fits all solution. We really have to be more flexible. And that was the second step. We added a new system, really flexible working models and working hours for all parents. So there was then really a match in between what they found out, what is their commitment, what are their resources versus what we can provide them to solve it. And the third step was role models. I think to really also shape the mindset within our agency, we show different role models, different perspectives with different working models, with different working hours, and also career levels and life stages to really bring it to our culture. And the last step, because we created something but worked out really well, the feedback was great, so we started a next level collaboration. Our partner, our coach also is offering now the Care Plus Lead program to all other companies, organizations and individuals, just to really shape this topic, work-family enrichment, also within our society, and really to have more impact on this topic, that we really can support also parents out of loop. And I think when it comes to DEI projects and really successful DEI strategies, that needs to be like co-creation, collaboration, but also social safeness. And I think that's pretty simple but powerful, and less following trends and less doing like buzzword bingo.
Very interesting, thank you. So it seems that it's emerging so far, at least, that the co-creative, participative approach could be a good reaction and to the political backlash, but also as a shift from regulation and norms to really sense making, so creating also engagement.
Yes.
So, which is we're hearing something positive at the end, right?
Yeah.
It gives us hope for the future. Fabrizio Tripoli. So I know you work in an American company too.
Yes, I do, yes.
And American company who's like dealing with managing very well-known brands that we all know. And I know that at the core of your organizational culture and values, there's a diversity management. So, how are you dealing with this political backlash?
Look, thank you, Adriano. I can tell you something more. I will try to tell you a story about my company. First of all, I'm working with Brown-Forman. Brown-Forman is the company that is a U.S. Kentucky-based company. It's the company that is producing and selling the Jack Daniel's whiskey and several other spirits since more than 150 years. I'm working as HR director currently in the Europe region, but I mean, in the past years also, especially I was working more on the emerging markets. So Brown-Forman is an American company that has gone through a journey when it comes to D&I. So I will try to tell you a story, more than listing what we have been doing. I just want to try to share our journey, how we landed to where we are today, which is a very different position than where we were just 1 year ago. So Brown-Forman started its effort in the D&I space back in 2019. So very early stage, we have been immediately, as part of our DNA and our culture, we strongly still believe that diversity brings richness, and diversity is a business topic, it's not an HR topic, right? So, and we can talk more about this later. But actually, what happened last year, as we all know, things have started changing dramatically. The political, the legal landscape, notably in the US, but not only, has been changing in a very important way, as we know. And so last year, back in 24, Brown-Forman came up with a public statement where we share our position in terms of our D&I strategy will be evolving, okay? Of course, this has come together with a lot of political tension. Many other companies like Bud, Harley Davidson, these kind of iconic US brands have been very much put a kind of a pressure to say, okay, where are you going now? No, things were changing soon in the administration and so on. So actually, I can tell you this is a public statement. So Brown-Forman last year in August 24 shared with the, internally and externally that we have been putting a lot of effort and a lot of energy in the D&I, and we still believe that diversity is a key element of our company and our culture. But we need to adapt to what is changing around, right? And when I say Jack Daniel's is an iconic brand of US, of course, this is has a strong share in our decision. So, very practically, we announced that we have been, few points, like ensuring that executive incentives and employees' goals are tied to business performance only. We have been removing our workforce, our quantitative workforce and supplier diversity ambitions. We have been deciding to end our participation with the Human Rights Campaign Corporate Equality Index, which is a US entity that is assessing company against their equality effort and results. And of course, we committed to review our training to make sure that internal training on D&I to make sure that this could be consistent with this evolved strategy. What has changed in terms of brand? We do have a diversity and inclusion office with the D&I officers, with the D&I team. What has changed is that we move, like, from a branding perspective, we have been sticking more on the inclusive culture, which, by the way, is something that is part of our DNA, something that goes beyond the D&I, I would say, statement and initiative. It's something that is part of our core values. And actually, this was an announcement that was, was a bit tough. Of course, D&I topics have different impact. If you talk about this in UK or in Brazil or in Turkey or in Africa, they land very differently. I think this is a very important point. But what we were stating also very clearly that there are things that are changing, but there are things that are not changing. What is not changing is our strong belief that we want to keep building an inclusive environment where everyone feels welcome, respected, able to bring their best self to work. That's something that is part of us, regardless of what's going on around the company. We committed, and we will keep working. We keep working with the ERGs, employee resources groups, to make sure that we have this kind of space for professional development, networking, mentoring about these topics. And of course, I would say the most important thing is that we want to keep working and building our global team to make sure that we are reflecting the diversity of the customer base and the geography we are serving. Because as a consumer goods company, if you are not able to reflect the diversity of the customer you are serving, you are having a big problem, right? Because the world is different, it's diverse. That's the reality, right? So you need to make sure that the decision-making process is reflecting diversity, which means richness. This is what happened. When it comes to what it means now for the company, I would say we are in a pause/reflection involving our inclusive strategy. Of course, there have been many programs, many commitments that we have been reviewing, and we are, I would say, still assessing. The situation has dramatically changed since that August, and I would say inclusion is a top priority, still in our, very high in our agenda, but it's clear that the way we should also look at that is very different. And my personal feeling, and I can tell you more when we will talk about the future, is that we need to make sure that we look at this in a way that is consistent, relevant, is shared, and is not creating polarization as maybe has happened somehow and sometime in the past. That's where we are.
Thank you very much. So, thanks a lot. So we have a very interesting and diverse scenario here. So, yes, as we agreed, I would like to talk about the future. I mean, what you're hoping, what you expect, and what you fear. And I would add something that is related to my personal interest. I've just started, but I'm doing a bit of research about diversity in a very specific topic, which is social background. Because In discussing DEI, of course, the focus has been on gender, on cultural background, on issues related to disability, for sure, and maybe also like different seniority, different age at work. But the Cinderella of DEI discussions has been the social background, which is social background means different opportunities for learning, different opportunity for social networking, and different opportunities for career. So in some organizations, especially in UK, are dealing with this topic, but it's very, very small discussion. I mean, it's been overlooked and is still being overlooked. So if you had some ideas or you came across about also this topic, would be interesting to hear. But main focus is about the future. So Lisa, would you mind to share with us your ideas and the scenarios that you're expecting for the future?
Thank you. Yes, very interesting, all the experiences that we are learning.
Indeed,
from.
we have some outstanding speakers today.
Yes, very, very interesting and different. Well, for the future, I think we can no longer make long-term programs. That's the point. So we have to live by today and the next months and see how the programs that we are putting in place that reflect the social situations are working. What we want is also to remain very, how can I say, we want the programs that we put in place to reflect who we are as a company, our core values, our policies. We think that we have to remain consistent, and that's very important. So the consistency is what we are keep on looking at. We will try to challenge ourselves to foster new programs and new initiatives. Diversity, equity and inclusion is and will remain a center of our attention. It's very important, and it's also very close to my heart as a professional. I will not accept to work in a company that doesn't put these a strong light on these topics. Of course, then each and every company, each and every experience will have to tailor it based on the workforce, based on the culture that they have in a company. But this is very important. And what you were mentioning, the sort of diversity, equity, and inclusion topic related to social background is something that I'm not currently dealing with, but I did in my past experience in another very, very, very big company, a consultancy firm. And it's something that will be the attention in the next future, because it's difficult to find talents. So the talent shortage will destroy this wall of elitarism in an environment, especially like finance or law, medicine, or many other very elitarian backgrounds and studies, because there is a shortage of talents and there is a shortage of hungry people, so people that want to achieve something, no matter where they're coming from, no matter if they come from a rich family or not. So this is a very, very important topic. We for sure will have to deal with it, because we, in our industry as well, it's the chemical industry, we are facing difficulties in hiring. And if in the past we were just going into the same old places to recruit and network, we will need to widen it, and widen it will mean accepting way more social background than what we are doing now.
Thank you, Lisa, also because you explained the issues much better than I did, so thank you for that. Elisa, what about the future then?
Future and present. So inclusion, as Fabrizio was saying, is definitely something that it's very important. In my organization in particular, we also have what we are calling the BRG, the Business Resource Group, where there are individuals across all the globe that they are starting to working because they like to work together on specific topics. There are, for example, the caregivers or parents with kids or women network or group related to the sustainability. In particular, for us, inclusion is linked to what is the disability. We wanted to all the legal requirements has become now a fantastic opportunity for inclusion. So we are really, really active on this, and we will be more and more because we want to make sure that all the business understand this. There is a big part related to the EU pay transparencies as well. But then talking about the topics that you were mentioned that I've always been completely passionate since the time of the university, the social aspect is very nice to work for a multinational because it really gives you the opportunity to do also some experiments on these things. And in particular, what we really care and what I launched is the reverse mentoring. I love to mix it up, the people, the very young people together with people who are very, very senior. I really see fantastic benefits of doing that. It's really helping on the inclusion as well. It's a kind of social experiment because I see also some resistance, especially in some part of the Europe. But on the other side, is a fantastic opportunity of on the future and making sure that we go ahead on this.
Thank you very much. Claire, so what are your expectations about the future?
As you were saying before, I think we need to be hopeful and optimistic. That's the basis. Considering,
I'm not sure we should be optimistic.
No, I think we, I mean,
actually,
I
think a little bit slightly pessimistic and with a bit of paranoia could be helpful.
Yeah, but let's be positive, not too say optimistic. Okay, let's be positive. What I mean is that what I'm sure of is that we need to adapt, to be flexible. I mean, keeping in mind the geopolitical situation. I don't want to make any politics. So by this, we need, as a company, so as an organization, to have this in our values, in our principles. This is the only thing we can rely on. So having said that, I think it will be important that it comes from the top in the organization. So to make sure that when we are recruiting, when we are promoting, this inclusive leadership is part of the values and the skills that our managers have within the organization. That's the first thing. Then before you were mentioning this social background, because as you said, I mean, when we talk about diversity, equity and inclusion, most of the time we focus on the gender, disability, something we didn't talk before, but is as well, just the color of your skin, your origin. That's maybe now we're more focusing on the gender, but this is clearly a kind of discrimination that it has been existing for time, and we need to fight against it. And I guess this comes as well along with the social background. And before you were mentioning the talent shortage, I guess what we're trying to do as a company is when we try to diversify, let's say, the type of schools, universities where we look for talents, not only being present at big university, very famous university first, but try to diversify these kind of things. Also we're not talking about mentoring, but try as well to put some training programs in place, meaning, welcoming, for instance, if we're talking about Switzerland or Germany, they're very strong in what we call, apprenticeship models, so very young, professionals, so trying to welcome this kind of students. It's a kind, of small action that we're trying to put in place to diversify as well our talents, our employees, and make it more inclusive, let's say.
Thank you very much, Claire. Michelle, so.
Yes, I want to end the talk a bit with some more motivating words. You do then the pessimistic ones, right? I think we need the power.
But it's a pragmatic pessimism. It's just in order to hope,
Yeah,
you
okay.
need to be careful. Yeah.
Okay, I go with hope. But I think we should just change a bit our perspective. I think the backlash shouldn't be the end. It's just kind of a reset button, and we just should challenge our strategies or projects and focus on impact. Why? Because I think the future generation, we can't activate them with the older existing system. They are expecting more. And I think we can activate them with belonging, with co-creation, with listening. And then from a digital agency perspective, I think there's one thing we should also focus on, it's AI. I think AI is moving in with a speed we've never seen before. As we see it from client requests, it's about automation, standardizations, efficiency in every single department. So, and that will go on. We can see it already now. And I think something really interesting is happening. I think what makes us human will be the key for competitive advantage. So empathy, collaboration, and creativity. So, and this will lead to success. And I also think that this will be something, but of course the social skills you will find are really in a diverse team. So hopefully that will be also something what will be also again back in business needs and arguments for that. So, and then last but not least, I think of course there will be a decrease in political support, in fundings and so on. But the answer should be powerful collaborations. I think powerful collaborations of companies, organizations, or whatever, can drive then in the future real change and impact, because at the end systemic change, you can't do it on your own, you should do it together. And I think that's maybe also a new approach we should focus on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Also, because you mentioned AI, I'm surprised we didn't mention AI before, because of course it's a very urgent topic and it's related to the ethical dimensions very much. So.
But again, based on our projects we're working at the moment, it's not that urgent anymore. I think it should have already the focus on.
Sure. But the discussion is still going on because we're just in the learning process, in the learning loop.
Yeah, good.
Fabrizio Tripodi, so
Yes.
would you mind to share your perspective?
Let's talk about the future. So first of all, let me make a joke. It's funny. I think it's the only panel that didn't touch on AI because it's all about AI now. So it's really interesting. But I think AI will play a role, of course. But I just want to share a couple of words. When it comes to the future, I think we need to be. I mean, of course, you can be pessimistic, we can be optimistic, whatever, but we need to make sure, I think, that we keep the right focus on what is important and what is relevant, and also understand what has been the learning journey through what we went through, right, in this change of direction. So I think that we need to keep the right focus on what is relevant for the company, for the organization, what is important, what is something that is not negotiable in our culture, right? This is what I believe we need to stick to. We need to make sure that when it comes to inclusion, as I said before, this is something that is part of our DNA, and especially in this time of change, uncertainty, geopolitical, very, very difficult, there was a situation, that's where we need to make sure that every one of us, especially leaders, are championing the culture and making sure that these things are not changing. We are safeguarding our culture. We are not being impacted to an extent that can change something can change the culture where people believe, where people reflect. So I think that's the most important thing to focus on. I would say it's also important that we stress the message that inclusive culture is not an HR topic, it's a business topic. There has been sometimes a risk of HR having like this nice storytelling that then doesn't reflect into the employee experience, right? So we need to make sure that everyone is championing, is walking the talk when it comes to inclusion. So maybe we do less, but we are extremely authentic and we are extremely transparent, also being open to be vulnerable, because this is a difficult topic. We are all learning, right? So there might be mistakes, there might be things that we need to learn. So we need to be extremely authentic when it comes to such delicate topic. Otherwise, we risk to have a storytelling that is not reflected in the company, and this is creating polarization, because as a paradox, in some situation where maybe you've been trying to force a bit the topic on inclusion and diversity, maybe someone felt excluded because they were not catching up with that, they weren't understanding. I can tell you, very short story, at the very beginning of our D&I journey, we were making this training all around the world. I was making this training back in 2019 in Turkey, in Czech Republic, and actually these people, they were not in disagreement, they just didn't get what we were talking about, because the cultural background makes the difference, and we need to respect that. The entry point of different culture and different countries is something that we need to be all extremely conscious. I think this one was one of the big fail when we say, like, this is what we must do and one size fits all. It does not like that. The world is extremely different. We can see now how different is the world, right? So last but not least, I always stress the point around you can change things, processes, tools, talent review, recruiting, whatever. There are many tools that you can put in place, but the inclusive culture, the way people think about being inclusive, it's a cultural journey that doesn't go through processes. Process can help, enabling, accelerating, but if people do not believe in what we are saying, do not reflect themselves in the meaning of the inclusive culture, that means behaving in a way, communicating in a way, understanding, there is something that is not changing. What I'm trying to say is that there has been maybe a bit of a fail in forcing some processes to reach some goals, and then you turn around and you see that your team is not exactly with you, right? There are some people that are left back because they're not catching up. So we need to be also patient that a cultural journey takes time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of authenticity. So trust the process, but you need to build the culture, right? That's really important. Last but not least, I would say this is something that should be a shared, a common goals. I mean, there is no like men, women. This is something that's all for us. Inclusion and diversity is creating richness. That's clear, and the world is going in that direction. So it's not just about the organization. I'm also talking about the society. You see that when it comes to these topics, the polarization is just around the corner, right? I'm here, you're here, I'm talking about you. No, it's me. That's really where we need to. So we need to go back, recalibrate, be vulnerable and open to say something was not wrong, recalibrate our approach and make sure that we do things together. And again, maybe we do less, but in a more authentic way. That's my hope and my, I would say, commitment on the D&I topic.
Thank you, Fabrizio. So walk the talk.
Absolutely.
I want to stick to it because maybe you're suggesting there'll be like less activities, but there's also an informal organization, which is, and leadership is still there. And in the leadership toolbox, there's still listening, inclusions and persuasive communications, and also values. So yes.
That's how you move the needle when it comes to culture, right? I mean, you cannot really, if you are putting goals, you have the risk that you are forcing something, and then again, you just get maybe where you want to get, but then you realize that it didn't work for everyone. So that is something we need to be very careful about.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our speakers. Thank you very much to our audience. I think that my opinion is that there's been an outstanding discussion. We have shared and learned a lot. So I hope you share my perception. So I thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.